Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. So today I will guide you, instruct on the topic of nutrition and health for the introduction to food science course. So before this, you have learned about all the macro components and micro components of food. So today we will touch a bit on how this food will affect our health. So the learning outcome for this topic is after you have finished doing this topic, so you should be able to identify the contribution of various nutrients to the diet and differentiate the nutritional changes that occur before, during, and after processing. For this one, most likely we will not touch because some of the important elements have been discussed during each of the topic before for each of the macro components. And then to integrate balanced diet in your daily lives and to explain the relationship between nutrient intake and to health, and to produce a report on diet recall of personal nutritional intake at certain period of time. This one is the one that you have to do on your own for the assignment. The assignment, I have put the instruction and you can follow the instruction in the module that is given to you. Okay, as we understand, what is nutrient? Okay, nutrient in foods. Nutrients actually have we can get the nutrients from food, and some of the nutrients are also disposed in our body. Okay, and energy is what nutrients can also yield some energy when we take the nutrients. Nutrients also include vitamins and also minerals. We call these vitamins and minerals micronutrients. Okay, so for this particular topic, it will be divided into few sections. First is the type of nutrient, which I will not cover so much because this type of nutrient has been covered in depth for each of the nutrient for the macro component and also micro component. Okay, and then we will go through the food pyramid, which is following the Malaysian dietary guidelines, and what are the energy balance and energy expenditure, okay, that we have to follow according to the guidelines. Okay, other than that, we will also discuss the BMI, the body mass index. This is a very popular topic if we talk about nutrition and health. Okay, other than the BMI, we also have to consider the waist circumference and also the body composition. Okay, as we know that it is a very important issue right now. Okay, we will talk a little bit on how this nutrition are also affected by the food security. Okay, and also we will discuss about the recommended nutrient intake, which is the RNI. Okay, we will also discuss about different metabolic syndrome, which will happen if we do not control our intake, our nutrient intake. Okay, so there are 6 classes of nutrient. So the macronutrient that you have learned, okay, these are the macronutrients. We are talking about water. Water is one of the main elements of nutrient, yeah, in our body. Yeah? It composes almost more than 60% of our body composition are made of water. And we also have the carbohydrates. Okay, so why people eat carbohydrates? Because carbohydrates are something that make us feel full quite fast, and also it is source of energy. And then we have another important macro component, which is protein. protein is, we know that protein, we need the protein source for growth and also development for the muscle, for example. Okay, other than that, we also have a group of macro component, which is lipid. So lipid is very important macro component in food processing. Okay, we also have Malaysia also is a very famous exporter of lipid, which is palm oil or palm stearin. Okay, so other than that, we also have smaller amount of nutrient that is needed by our body. So we call it micronutrients, so which is vitamins. Where vitamins we can find a lot of vitamins from fruit and vegetables, okay, and also minerals. Minerals are important elements for cofactor for most of the function that is going to happen in our body. Okay, so and we will ask ourselves, why do we eat the way we do? So there are many factors that will affect our food choice. Okay, so first is actually the so this is not arranged in any order, so we can can just discuss how or what are the factors, different factors that affect our food choice. Okay, one is the value. So what are the value of the food that we are going to buy and we are going to eat? Okay, and then number two is the personal preference. So we have this choice in first world country, right? For example, we want to eat this food or that food for dinner or for lunch. So we have this personal preference that not everybody will like the food that we like, and not you don't have to like other people's the food that other people like. Okay, and then habit. We are human, are a creature of habit, right? So in you can actually see what are your habits in about like 1 or 2 weeks. So you tend to do the same thing again and again every day. So that became our habit. So we tend to eat because of our eating habitual. And then we talk about ethnicity, heritage, or tradition. This is very true because especially in Malaysia, where we have a lot of cultural mixture of food, and we know food is also part of the culture. So we are so lucky in Malaysia. We have so many different culture that is brought over to food, and then we have so many different choices of food that is from different ethnic heritage and also tradition. Okay, social interaction. I think this is one of the important elements. I think most of the culture, or I would just say, in Malaysia, we see this all the time. Every time you go and see your friend, you will meet them at mama shop, or you will bring some sort of food, because we uh, our culture, Malaysian culture, we celebrate through food, right? Good food, okay. And then body weight and image. Okay, so this one is so it's very important that we know that if we overeat or overconsumption, we will affect our image. So for those who are actually very taking care of their image, they will not go beyond the calorie or the type of food that their body are actually needed. Okay, and then the availability and convenience and economy. This is also very important. When we talk about food security, is how much food that we actually need and how much that we can actually buy. This one is like the purchasing power. Okay, and is it convenience? If the food is that we like but is so far away and we have to drive to get that food, then we will not buy it, because we will think about time, convenience. And with all this having food delivery, it is so convenient that we may affect the food choice. And then emotional comfort. This one is actually very true. Some people find comfort through food. When when you get to be emotional, or we get to involve emotions, we normally go indulge in certain type of food that comfort our emotions. Okay, and this is actually the most important element why we should choose the factor that we should choose our food, which is the nutrition and also health status or health benefit. So why do we eat that kind of food? Because it gives us nutrient and health benefits to our body. That is the, or I would say the one of the main reason we should go for first before we choose other reasons to choose the food that we want to eat. Okay. So nutrients in food and in the body. Okay. Composition of food are nutrient and also non-nutrient. Okay. Like I mentioned before, the composition of body. So in our body, mostly they are about 60% are water, and about 13 to 25% are fat, which is for men, and for women we have more fat because it's about 23 to 31%, and carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and other minor constituents. Okay, and chemical composition of the nutrient, I think you have gone through this in the previous notes or lecture. Okay, so we have the organic material or organic nutrients, which we have the carbon. When we say organic, it means it contains carbon. Carbon is one of the chemical compound. Okay, and in organic nutrients, there is no carbon. There are other elements, but there is no carbon. For example, we have minerals and also water. So water are made up of H2O. So there is no carbon in water, right? Because it is made up of two molecule of hydrogen and one molecule of water. Minerals also. Minerals, when we talk about minerals, it is a single component. For example, magnesium, kalium, calcium. Those are actually a single nutrient or compound. There is no carbon in them. Okay, but when we talk about organic nutrients, where we macro components especially, okay, CHO is carbohydrate, so it is made up of C and H. You learn this in previous classes. Okay, how does the structure of glucose, for example, right? And then lipids is a link of double bond. We talk about monounsaturated fatty acid, saturated fatty acid, the one that has double bond, the one that has no double bond. Okay, it is made up of C and H, C, H, and O. Okay, proteins are made of a single element of proteins are amino acids, so it is made up of amino and also acid, and then the middle part is the C, the carbon, that has the 4 different bonds, right? Okay, and then vitamins are also organic nutrients. Okay, so when we say organic, it means it contains carbon. Okay, so you can see from here, okay, this is the elements of 6 classes of nutrient. Okay, so notice the organic nutrient contain carbon. Okay, contain carbon. So when we say contain carbon, okay, so we for example, this one, we talk about minerals. Minerals are minerals, so it doesn't have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, or nitrogen, because minerals are single compound, right? Water, like I mentioned before, it is a hydrogen and also oxygen. But for organic nutrient, okay, organic nutrient, carbohydrates, lipids, protein, vitamins, they all have a carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. If you go back to your other topics that you have gone through for the carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, and vitamins, they have all these elements, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But only in proteins we have nitrogen, because that's why it is called amino. Amino is made up of NH2, right? Okay, so you have the N in there. So if we go at higher level, for example, the other topic that you learn about proximate analysis in food analysis, when we want to label the food, for example, if we are a food manufacturer, we want to label our food, then we do approximate analysis or chemical composition of nutrient. Then we do this analysis, it's called Gel-Dal or Kjeldahl method, to identify the protein content, that the one that you found in the packaging of food, right? So this Gel-Dal method, okay, will actually calculate the percent of nitrogen in the food. Okay. So if you have a higher nitrogen in the food component or in the food compound, in the food sample, then you will have a higher protein, because that particular analysis will actually calculate how much the N in the sample which represent the protein. Okay, so always remember this, only the protein has the nitrogen group. Okay, then we go to the global food insecurity. This one is actually talking about food security, right? Okay, so food security is actually food security versus food insecurity. Okay, so food insecurity is actually unreliable access to a sufficient supply of nourishing food and inequities in agriculture and food service employment. Okay, so we know that the world actually is having a food insecurity problem, a food security problem, and global and domestic disparities in infant mortality and also life expectancy. Okay, so the UN estimate 1 of the 9 people in the world is chronically undernourished. What does it mean by chronically undernourished? That means at a very long time, people are actually, this 1 of 9 people actually are still undernourished for a long time. And this 98% live in developing nations. So that's why when we actually do a lot of research, we have to focus on this developed or developed nations to get, you see that a lot of research grants are actually given to combat or tackle this in global food insecurity problems. Okay. So when we talk about food insecurity, we talk about these 4 elements of 4 pillars, we call it. One is availability of the food. Number 2 is the access of the food. Number 3 is how the food is being utilized. And number 4 is how stable, like how the food can be sustained, the source, for example. So one time it is there, the next time it is not there. So it is not stable. So when we want to find something, a solution to solve this food insecurity problem, we have to find a crop or ways of, cultivation that is to maintain the stability of the source. Okay. So this one is more detail on this 4 dimension of food security. Okay, we go to the availability. What does it mean by food availability? First, we define what is food security. Okay, for food security, when we say food security, what does it mean? It means that the food should exist when all people, we are talking about all people in the world at all times, have physical and economic access to sufficient. That means the food can be there, but it may not be sufficient, right? So we have food security issue there if we don't have sufficient food. Safe, okay, so food safety is very important, and nutritious food. So we're talking about having all people at all times have physical access to enough food, but then the food is not safe and not nutritious enough. So food security will have an issue there. Okay, that will meet dietary needs and food preference for an active and healthy life. Okay, so this one is a very long definition, but that is the definition of food security. Okay, so the 4 pillars of food security is the food availability. So when we say food availability, it means that there is sufficient quantity of appropriate and quality of food is available. So if we are into food science, for example, we want to develop a new innovation of food. So we have to make sure that the food is of quality because it is part of the food security, right? Quality food is available from domestic production, commercial import, food assistance, or food reserve on a consistent base. So that means it is available. Remember when we have this crisis of egg crisis not so long ago, right? So we see that what the government has done in order to make sure that most of the consumer in Malaysia have access to egg. Okay, so we have to import. So that means we have to commercially import the eggs from somewhere else, right? Although Malaysia is actually a country that produce a lot of eggs, but somehow we cannot find the eggs in the country of at that particular time. Okay, number two is the access. Okay, one is available. Number one is important, what is available. Number two is access. Okay, what does it mean by access to food? Access can mean physical access. When the food is there, you can access the food, right? So you can touch the food. That means you can have physical access. But at the same time, you also have to have economic access. Okay, economic meaning that if the food is there on the shelf, but you cannot afford to buy the food, it is not accessible to you, to us, for example. Okay, because now food is very expensive, right? When we spend like 50 ringgit, we go to the grocery shop, we can only buy like 3-4 things, depending on what we take. Okay, especially healthy food. Healthy food is very expensive. Okay. So that is one of the main reason why most people are undernourished, where the food is available, we can buy, but it is not nutritious enough. Okay, so people have adequate income or other resources to access appropriate food domestically through home production, buying in local market, or exchange or gifts or borrowing, or as in food aid. Food aid ni macam subsidi lah. In Malaysia, we call it subsidy. But if we go to overseas like US, they call it food aid. You buy the food through, you get a lot of coupons. When you go to supermarket, you can use the coupons and you end up not paying anything, right? So they have those kind of assistance. But in Malaysia, we call it subsidy. Okay. Utilization, that is also important thing. It means that people utilize food properly through food storing and processing practice will have sufficient knowledge whether apply nutritional, health, sanitation, socio-cultural, as well as spiritual parameters of food. This one is mostly where the food science comes in. Okay, how you utilize the food. Okay, and the last one is the stability. We talk about just now, I mentioned a bit on the stability. So stability of food refers to availability of adequate food at all times. A certain that access and utilization of appropriate food is not curtailed by any hindrance. That means dia tak tersekat-sekat. It's not controlled by cartel, for example. It's not. We don't have any natural disaster, emergency, sudden crisis. So if we have that, that means our food is not stable. So that means we have food security issue. Okay. So this is very important because this food security will also affect the nutrition. The nutrition, we call it nutrition insecurity. Okay, for this particular topic. Okay, one that I mentioned, when you see this DOI or link, that one that I gave on the slide, you can actually click there, or if it goes to the link, or you can just copy and paste to Google page, and you can read further from that particular page or that particular article. Okay, because this is just an introduction of food science, we cannot go very detailed on each of the component. Okay, I think this is also too overwhelming for you, right? Okay, then we talk about if there is not enough food, right? So we will have a malnutrition issue. Okay, malnutrition takes a different form. For those who has not for those countries or people in developing countries or underdeveloped countries that has not enough food to eat, okay, they may have problems of undernutrition, which results from not getting enough food to eat. Okay, but in developed countries like Malaysia is getting to be developed countries, or in the Western countries, you see this picture, burger and Coke. This is very famous combination, right? We have a problem of overnutrition, and that is also called malnutrition, because malnutrition refers to not a good nutrition, right? So what does it mean by overnutrition? It is resulted from excessive consumption of energy-dense food along with inadequate physical activity. This is one of the big problems that we are facing for our society in developed or in Malaysia or developed countries. Okay, so we have this problem. We are lacking of physical activity and we like to eat energy dense food along with that. Okay, it's a recipe for disaster. Okay, and then we have a problem of food shortage. Okay, so acute food shortage may be caused by weather events and also war. Okay, this one like natural disaster, for example. So we will have problems where people cannot access to the food. So we will have food shortage. And famine. Famine ni kelaparan yang melampau. Famine, a severe food shortage that affect a large percentage of population and limited area at a particular time. Okay. And then when we talk about food security, we cannot run away of climate change topic. And we know that we have this main issue of global warming because this global warming is affecting our food resources. Okay, so global warming contributes significantly to climate change. So any significant change in the measures of climate over several decades will have an impact to global food security. How? Because our crop yield is being reduced. Because panas, so crop kita tak boleh tahan, cannot stand. So reduce lah dia punya yield. Okay, and then destruction. So we have very long drought, for example. Our padi, for example, they cannot grow. Okay, and then it's also very important because seafood. If you study, I'm not sure if some of you comes from aquaculture or any of background from handling or learning about ocean. 1% of increase in the degree of 1 degree change in the warming environment will significantly affect the availability of the fish because this fish they have different temperature, they have different level that they swim types of fish. So when temperature gets higher, so they will actually affect their behavior, the availability and the place where they normally there. Then it's not there. Then they are not there anymore. The type of fish that we normally consume. Okay, this is very interesting. We can watch this a lot in National Geographic or Planet Earth. Very interesting and nice videos. We can watch this. Actually, this is actually very real. Okay. So what are the problems with limited nourishing foods? One is nutritional imbalance. Okay. The other one is when you have nutritional imbalance, okay, then you will have wasting. That means very low body weight or height or extreme thinness, okay, or severe acute malnutrition. This one applies to those yang undernourished lah. That means they don't have enough nutritious food. Then it will involve the stunting, stunted growth, shorter than expected for individual or chronically undernourished. Actually, we have this problem in our school children. If you actually read reports by the Ministry of Health, most of our school children, is actually stunted. It's not enough nutrient. Actually, our kids eat a lot, right? Eat a lot, and we think that they have enough food, but the food that our kids are actually taking is not nutritious enough for their growth. So that's why we have this stunting problem in Malaysia actually. Yeah? One is because I've been to one of the discussion with Nutritional Society, and also the Ministry of Health. Okay, it was presented in one of the talk. It was very interesting talk. Actually, it was found that our children does not drink enough milk, because we know milk is one of the important nutrient during growing, for growth. And our children also does not spend enough time under the sun. You know that vitamin D, especially D3, is actually needed for the absorption of calcium. So our children does not spend enough time under the sun. Tak cukup cahaya matahari, sebab they just stay at home, right? Stay at home. Even if you drink the milk, not enough absorption. Itulah. Those are the two main issues that were found. Okay. 1 in 7 people in the world is undernourished, and most prevalent in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Inilah Southeast Asia, which is Malaysia. Okay. Also part of Southeast Asia. In Central and South America, rates are as high as 25% of population. So it's taken from the Pearson Education book. Okay. So problems with limited nourishing foods, okay, is maternal mortality, where death of a woman during pregnancy, childbirth. This one we call it, we see it a lot in underdeveloped country, or developing countries, and also infant mortality, death of an infant between birth and also year 1. Sebab tak cukup nutrient, they don't have enough nutrient. Okay, and then we have limited nourishing food and obesity. A nutrition paradox, where coexistence of stunting and overweight or obesity in the same region, household or person. And this is nutrition paradox. The factors trend toward decreased physical activity or global shift in diet towards increased intake of energy dense food, which is low in micronutrients and also fiber. Okay, because we have this nutrition paradox. Okay, and then we also have poverty obesity paradox, where obesity is more prevalent in low income population, because like I've mentioned before, when the food is there, you don't have enough money to buy the nutritious food. So that's why low income population, they are more obese, because wrong nutrient that were consumed by this low population group. Reduction in family income during early childhood increase the child's risk of becoming overweight or obese. This one also we found a big problem. And hunger obesity paradox, where low income people are obese while also deficient in one of malnutrition or even hungry. Okay. So we have this problem in low income population. Okay. So I will stop here. Okay, then we shall continue on second part of the nutrition and health a bit later. So I will stop here for part 1. All right, I will see you later.